fun running with him than anybody I've ever run with. And because I know if I ever went to a racetrack and he was there, if I could beat him, I'd win the race. So I appreciate it. Sure do. Everything you've done, that's.
By the time David Pearson stepped away from full-time competition, he had already defined what efficiency meant in NASCAR. 105 wins, 3 championships. Fewer starts than most of his rivals, yet a win percentage that still stands near the top of the record book. Pearson did not chase volume. He chased execution. When he entered a race, it was to control it. He was not the loudest man in the garage. He did not build his reputation on intimidation or theatrics. His strength was rhythm, smooth throttle control, tire management before teams talked openly about it. On superspeedways, he could sit patiently in the draft, reading air movement and timing his run. On short tracks, he understood tempo, when to pressure, when to wait, when to conserve. Pearson respected mechanics. He respected preparation. Most of all, he respected drivers who could maintain composure when the race narrowed down to 5 laps and 1 decision. In his era, respect was not exchanged casually. It was earned through repeated pressure, through late restarts at Daytona, through side-by-side exits at Darlington, through knowing that one small mistake at Bristol could end both days. This list is not about friendships. It is not about shared meals or post-race conversations. It is about standards inside the car. Drivers who forced Pearson to adjust. Drivers who made him sharper. Drivers who understood that greatness in NASCAR is measured by control under stress. These were not friendships. These were standards. Number 5. Cale Yarborough. Cale Yarborough and David Pearson came up through the same hard era of NASCAR where championships were decided by toughness as much as speed. They were built differently. Pearson relied on patience and precision. Yarborough relied on pressure. When they met on track, the contrast was obvious. Pearson would calculate angles. Yarborough would close them. Their rivalry sharpened in the early and mid-70s, particularly on superspeedways. Daytona and Talladega were not just horsepower contests. They were drafting battles that required timing and nerve. Pearson often preferred to wait, to measure air movement and tire wear. Yarborough rarely waited. He forced decisions. He pushed runs that made other drivers uncomfortable. When the pack tightened with 10 laps to go, you could count on Cale to test the line first. The 1,976 Daytona 500 remains the defining pressure moment between them. On the final lap, Pearson and Yarborough fought side by side for the win. Neither lifted. Contact sent both cars spinning into the infield grass. Yarborough's car stalled. Pearson managed to restart his machine and crawl across the line first. It was not a clean finish. It was not glamorous. It was raw competition under maximum stress. Pearson understood something in that moment. Yarborough would rather crash fighting for a win than settle for second. Beyond that race, Yarborough's championship run in the late 70s proved consistency. 3 consecutive titles required more than aggression. It required endurance across long seasons, short tracks, intermediates, and superspeedways. Pearson respected that range. He respected that Yarborough could push limits without losing structural control of his season. They did not speak about admiration publicly. They did not need to. When Pearson saw Yarborough in his mirror late in a race, he knew exactly what was coming. Pressure without apology. He never lifted. Number 4. Bobby Allison. Bobby Allison brought a different kind of intelligence to the track. Where Cale Yarborough applied pressure through aggression, Allison applied it through calculation. He was deeply involved in his equipment, often understanding mechanical balance better than many crew chiefs. When Pearson lined up against Allison, he knew he was racing someone who could adjust mid-event without losing rhythm. Their paths crossed frequently through the 70s on short tracks and intermediate speedways. Bristol, Richmond, Rockingham. Tracks where traffic never gave you a clean lap and patience was tested every 10 seconds. Allison did not overdrive entry. He focused on exit stability, protecting tires, and maintaining forward bite late in a run. Pearson appreciated that discipline. It mirrored his own philosophy, though their driving styles were not identical. Daytona also offered its share of tension. Allison understood draft positioning as well as anyone. He could read when a line was forming when momentum was shifting. In late restarts, he rarely made emotional moves. He waited for structure. That forced Pearson to stay sharp. One misjudged push in the draft could hand Allison control of the race. Allison's toughness added another layer. He absorbed hits. He returned from setbacks. His 1,983 championship came in an era of mechanical unpredictability and deep fields. Winning across different track types required more than raw speed. It required adaptability. Pearson respected drivers who could evolve rather than rely on one specialty. There were no easy afternoons when Allison was nearby. If you led, he studied you. If he led, he defended with structure, not chaos. Pearson valued that steadiness. Racing against Allison was rarely dramatic, but it was always demanding. He had to think at race speed, not just drive. He could think at speed. Number 3. Darrell Waltrip. When Darrell Waltrip began rising in the late 70s, he represented something different. He was vocal, confident, willing to speak before he proved. David Pearson came from a quieter era. Wins were the language. Waltrip used both wins and words. That contrast created early tension. Their direct overlap came as Pearson was racing selectively and Waltrip was building momentum toward championships. On short tracks, especially Bristol and Martinsville, Waltrip thrived on rhythm and traffic control. He attacked restarts aggressively but with structure. Pearson noticed that. Waltrip did not simply overdrive. He calculated which corners could absorb risk and which could not. Pressure moments came in races where late cautions reshaped the field. Waltrip adapted quickly to shifting conditions. In the early 1980s, as the sport's competitive balance tightened, Waltrip learned how to manage long seasons. He moved from raw speed to controlled execution. Pearson respected that evolution. Talent alone does not sustain championships. Adaptation does. Waltrip won 3 titles in a period when depth in the garage was expanding. New technology, new sponsorship structures, and increasing parity demanded more from drivers. Pearson observed that Waltrip adjusted his approach. He refined race management. He reduced unnecessary risks late in events. That maturity stood out. They did not mirror each other in personality. Pearson preferred silence. Waltrip embraced visibility. But on track, personality disappears. Only control remains. Pearson respected drivers who learned how to convert potential into sustained dominance. Waltrip proved he could do that. He learned how to win. Number 2. Richard Petty. No rivalry defined David Pearson's career more clearly than his long contest with Richard Petty. Different personalities. Different public images. Petty carried the visibility of the sport. Pearson carried the efficiency. When they shared the front row, it was rarely chaotic. It was controlled tension. They finished first and second against each other, dozens of times across the 1960s and 70s. Daytona, Darlington, Rockingham, superspeedways where patience mattered, intermediate tracks where tire wear decided outcomes. Pearson knew that beating Petty required more than speed. It required consistency over an entire afternoon. Petty did not fade late. He maintained structure. The pressure moments were often subtle. Long green flag runs where one small lapse in focus meant losing draft connection. Pit cycles where seconds determined track position for the final stint. Petty's teams were organized, disciplined, and durable. Pearson respected that professional standard. Championships are built on systems, not highlights. While Petty accumulated volume, Pearson operated with selectivity. That contrast sharpened their competition. Petty ran full schedules with relentless endurance. Pearson often chose limited entries but maximized performance. When they met, both understood the stakes. Petty represented sustained greatness across seasons. Pearson represented peak efficiency. What Pearson valued most was Petty's consistency across eras. From the high horsepower late 60s to the evolving 70s, Petty adapted without losing identity. That stability defined championship mentality. Racing against Petty meant you had to be precise for every lap. There was no room for drift. Greatness needs opposition. Number 1. Dale Earnhardt. David Pearson's prime came before Dale Earnhardt fully defined his own era. But Pearson watched closely as the sport shifted in the late 1970s and 80s. Earnhardt did not just race competitors. He controlled them. That difference stood out. Where Pearson relied on rhythm and mechanical sympathy, Earnhardt brought psychological pressure into every corner. On superspeedways, he understood how to position his car so others defended instead of attacked. In the draft, he could close air quickly and force a decision. Drivers began racing differently when he was in the mirror. Pearson recognized that shift immediately. Short tracks revealed another layer. Earnhardt's car placement entering the corner was assertive, but rarely reckless. He would lean on a competitor just enough to disrupt balance, then secure exit speed. That required spatial awareness and commitment. Pearson valued drivers who understood car control under contact, not just in clean air. Earnhardt's championships in the 1980s and early 90s confirmed something larger. He maintained intensity across long seasons. He adapted to evolving setups and tighter competition. He did not soften his approach when the sport expanded nationally. Instead, he sharpened it. Pearson respected durability over spectacle. What separated Earnhardt in Pearson's eyes was impact. Drivers adjusted strategy around him. Teams built cars specifically to handle his style. Superspeedway defense changed, restart dynamics changed. The mental side of racing gained weight. Pearson understood greatness, not only as winning but as altering how others prepared. He changed how drivers defended. Jeff Gordon represented a shift that even drivers from Pearson's era could not ignore. By the time Gordon emerged in the 1990s, NASCAR was entering a different phase. Broader sponsorship reach, national television expansion, younger fan demographics. But beyond marketing changes, there was technical evolution on track. Gordon arrived, young, disciplined, and prepared. His background in open-wheel racing translated into smooth steering inputs and refined throttle management. Pearson respected skill sets that carried across formats. Gordon's early success was not built on chaos. It was built on control. He understood line selection at intermediate tracks and managed tire wear with precision that mirrored the older generation. Pressure moments defined Gordon quickly. Winning championships in the mid and late 1990s required beating deep fields. Superspeedways demanded draft awareness. Short tracks required patience against veterans who tested newcomers. Gordon adapted. He learned how to defend position without losing exit momentum. He learned when to push and when to protect. Pearson saw something else in Gordon's rise. The sport's image shifted. Corporate partnerships expanded. Younger audiences entered the stands. Yet Gordon maintained competitive integrity. He did not dilute the standards inside the car. Wins still required execution. Championships still required season-long discipline. For Pearson, respect did not depend on shared era. It depended on understanding that NASCAR evolves, and those who carry it forward responsibly matter. Gordon did not just win races. He proved that the sport could modernize without losing competitive edge. He respected him for changing the sport. Looking back across his career, David Pearson never measured competition through emotion. He measured it through response. The drivers he respected were the ones who forced him to adjust mid-race. The ones who demanded sharper entries, cleaner exits, and smarter pit decisions. Rivalry, in his view, was not personal. It was technical. Cale Yarborough tested nerve. Bobby Allison tested intelligence. Darrell Waltrip tested adaptation. Richard Petty tested consistency. Dale Earnhardt tested control. Jeff Gordon represented evolution. Each one shaped a different standard inside the garage. None were easy afternoons. None were casual victories. Pearson understood that winning alone does not define greatness. Facing sustained pressure does. Drivers who endure long seasons, who manage equipment, who adapt to shifting eras, build the sport forward. Respect is not handed out in press conferences. It is earned through repeated laps under stress. In NASCAR, competition is constant. Reputations rise and fall. Equipment changes. Generations turn over. What remains is the standard set between drivers who understand what it takes to survive a final restart with everything on the line. In NASCAR, respect is earned one lap at a time.